Well, good morning to everyone, and welcome to our Assembly Committee on Jobs, Economic Development, and the Economy for the 2019-20 legislative session. I am Assemblymember Sabrina Cervantes, the chair of the committee. With me this morning, we have several members of the Assembly Jobs Committee, including our Vice Chair, Assemblymember Cunningham, as well as members of the committee who are with us today. Also joining us are the legislative policy staff, including Tony Simons, our Chief Consultant with the Assembly Jobs Committee, Ben Warheit, our Committee Secretary with the Assembly Jobs Committee, and Caitlin Cook with the Republican Caucus Policy Consultant. Mr. Secretary, I believe we have a quorum. If you can please call the roll.
Thank you, Chairwoman Cervantes, and thank you for inviting me here to join you today. It's a great pleasure to have the opportunity to speak with you all. It's also nice to be having a conversation with this committee because I remembered hosting the committee in part of the California Economic Summit in the Inland Empire a couple of years ago, and so it's a great pleasure to have the opportunity to talk with you today. What I'd like to do is give you a little bit of overview about how I'm thinking about the opportunities that we have and how we might move forward on trying to ensure, as your hearing has described, helping ensure that we have an inclusive economy that works for everyone. You may not know from my bio, but I was born in Central California. I grew up on a dairy farm. My family still has that farm there. And part of the reason that I was enthusiastic about taking this job is to help ensure that the California economy works for everyone and not just those who happen to be in places where they benefit from the tailwinds that are moving the economy forward. And that's a large part of what I teach at Stanford Business School, is thinking about the opportunities to build a more inclusive economy in ways that work for business and work for the economy. So I'm excited to take this opportunity. There is a real opportunity, I believe, to ensure that the California economy actually has sustainable economic growth that works for all citizens, ensuring that it is an economy that is both resilient through this economic cycles, that is one which creates jobs, not just in the part of the economy and in this part of the economic cycle that is at the top, but throughout the cycle. One that ensures that we are doing that in ways which is good for the environment, and one that helps create high-quality jobs for citizens. And so I think about my role as the Chief Economic and Business Advisor of the Governor, as well as the role in the government's Office of Economic Development, to ensure that that happens, try and help make that happen. Obviously, there's a lot of things that are beyond our control and things that are not within the purview of what the specific role is, but that's how I think about it. That's where I'm coming from. I did a webinar with the California Economic Summit that presented a lot of the detail, and certainly if anyone would like to have access to that, it's on their website, on our website. Let me talk a little bit about 5 things that I think are really important for these opportunities. The first one is that it's really important that we are thinking about how regions rise together. There is an opportunity to help ensure the economy works, but it's different contexts in what part of the state we're talking about. And so the way I think about that is not that we need one top-down state approach, but that we need to help ensure that what's necessary for economic success in the Inland Empire, in the central part of the state, in the far east and the far north are driven by what those regions believe is important, and that the state's role is to help enable their success. So it's about regions rising, and rising both for what they need and as well as connecting them so that there are complementary capabilities in different regions that they can work together. The second thing is that there is an important element of this which is really about ensuring that the heartland of the state succeeds. And by that I mean the parts of the state that have had less attention from policy historically, less attention from the media, and less, frankly, focus on how we support what's necessary for success in the heartland of the state. That's not not looking at the coast, but really ensuring that there is a focus on Central California, the Inland Empire, and parts where the effort can help ensure that what's necessary there to succeed we support. The third thing that I think is really important, and you saw some of this announcement last week, is that California is a globally connected economy. We need to ensure that the export opportunities that are at front and center for many of our businesses in the state have real attention, and that the capital and interest that is available outside this country to be able to invest in job-creating opportunities in our state is made available. And so you saw last week probably that the governor stood up, the interagency commission that you mentioned, as well as named the lieutenant governor as an important role in the state to help face the opportunities to represent the state around the world. In my role as in the governor's team, I will be helping staff that, ensure that we have the kind of real forward-looking approach to have California face the external world. I think that's important because I'm sure you all hear from your constituents that concerns about California's ability to export is hurting our job creation. So trying to help ensure that we've got a focus on international. The fourth thing I'd like to say is that there is an important need, and I know you're talking about this later today, to ensure that we have the workforce development that we need. So we have an amazingly vibrant economy overall, and we have a large number of people who are really trying to participate in that economy and ensuring that they have all of the support they need to have the skills that they need and the advancement opportunities, something that I think is extremely important from the economy standpoint. It's extremely important when I'm talking to business leaders across the state. That's one of the first things they say to me, and it's the right thing to do. We have a large number of people who could use some help in ensuring that they have the workforce development that they need. And finally, there are a number of opportunities to help deploy capital in different parts of the state and for things that are high priorities. The governor's budget mentioned opportunity zones. We think that's an important tool in a set of toolkits to ensure that we are delivering the capital opportunities that are necessary to different parts of the state. They're much better if that is combined with a whole set of other tools in the toolkit of economic development, including enhanced infrastructure financing districts and other elements that the state has existing programs to help align those around ensuring that that capital is deployed for job creation, and job creation that helps with other goals like carbon reduction and high quality affordable housing development. So we're excited about that potential. All of this is in the context of what I think of as what is both smart policy and smart investment. Capital providers and business people that are in business for the long term think about their role and should think about their role as helping make the economy work, not just their narrow short-term profit interests. And when we're at our best, that's what policy helps enable. Helps enable high-quality businesses who are job creators, good for the environment, and are helping advance the set of policy objectives. Do the right thing. They like to do the right thing, and our job is to help support them, and I think that's what the possibility is. This is all in the context of how do we help ensure the California economy works for everyone, and that we can renew the California dream that many of us, including me, came to this state in the first place. I was born here, but my parents were migrants. So I look forward to working with you all. I'm happy to answer questions or take perspectives on what you would like to, and appreciate the time.
Thank you all for having me today. My short presentation will focus on how to operationalize climate change policy at the neighborhood scale and how we can move forward and closer towards the governor's quest for a more inclusive economy. We now have an abundance of legislative mandates that focus on environmental stewardship, and a key part of this legislation aims to address inequality in our cities. So policy now places an emphasis on repairing disadvantaged communities so they can actively participate in a new green economy. However, regions and municipalities are not sure how to go about this. Regional planning is not really designed to address the changing needs of disadvantaged communities. So the important question here is, how do municipalities move forward with this inclusive economy agenda? At its root, climate change legislation is based upon the concept of sustainable community strategies. The concept of sustainability is very simple. Achieve and maintain a balance of economic stewardship, economic growth, environmental stewardship, economic growth, and equity. All of our public investments must work to maintain this balance without compromising the ability to meet our future needs. We must encourage economic growth through an equitable distribution of social and economic opportunity. In this manner, we restore and revitalize disadvantaged communities while bringing capacity for resilience. So in this model, there's 5 basic elements that are essential to achieving neighborhood sustainability: education, employment, housing, healthcare, and wealth accumulating opportunities. We must also look at the soft and hard infrastructure, that connective tissue, transportation, energy, buildings, roads, broadband, etc. These tie together those 5 important social goods because they're all interdependent. If one goes bad, they all go bad. So when we reevaluate neighborhood systems, we should ask some very simple questions. Are these neighborhood systems reliable? Can I depend on them? What needs to be restored? How do we fix them? And are they resilient? How do we recover? And with Title VI of the Civil Rights Act, are these public investments being used to repair and regenerate those neighborhoods left behind? This is the analytical lens that ensures that we include all neighborhoods in climate change. When we use this approach, public investment strategies for our disadvantaged communities become restorative, regenerative by design. Economic investment preserves our natural resources while providing social protections and market access to all neighborhoods. I want to stress that this means we use the neighborhood as an important unit of analysis. It's a layer of governance that's missing from the sustainability equation, as well as the debate. Now, to demonstrate the potential of this legislative climate change toolkit, I use a case study of the Franklin neighborhood in South Sacramento. Our goals are very simple: GHG reduction, neighborhood stabilization. Our targets: fossil fuel transit, green infrastructure, and most important, human capital investment. Our strategies: multimodal transit, creating public space, renewable energy, and cradle-to-career networks. Now we have the foundation for moving into a neighborhood. And this is how it works. We recently won a grant for a complete streets redesign, which is our foundation for an efficient multimodal transit network. It will address heat mitigation, create public space with a green canopy, promote safety and health, increase resident business connectivity, and have a positive economic, health, and environmental effect: people, place, and planet. This allows us to leverage transit infrastructure for housing and transit-oriented development opportunities, as housing is leveraged and complements the new green streetscape. The neighborhood recently won a Transforming Climate Communities Planning Grant from the Strategic Growth Council, and this allows us to continue the neighborhood planning at the neighborhood scale. Thus, we can begin to see the multiple ways that climate change legislation can be used to revitalize a disadvantaged community. We complement this green streetscape with a neighborhood shuttle that provides internal connectivity to the business core, external connectivity to regional opportunities, and we reduce vehicle miles traveled by connecting to light rail and bus lines while revitalizing the business core. And we connect the dots with solar parking lot canopies. At the Neighborhood Resource Center, we recently won a $1 million grant to design new types of solar arrays using tension wires rather than in-the-ground type of foundations. This allows us local renewable energy generation with storage. It allows for microgrid capacity for disaster recovery plans, a heat cooling center, a job training in the energy industry, enhances public health, provides charging for electric vehicles, and reduces the cost of energy to the tenants at the property. And this site also becomes an important research location for deploying distributive, on-demand energy concepts in disadvantaged communities. And we also won a $5 million grant for weatherization and rooftop solars. We scale this up by repurposing blighted land for large-scale solar energy projects that become neighborhood infrastructure. Our solar project becomes a site for workforce development as well as economic development. In addition to an 11-acre solar array, we also provide public space with a 1-acre covered solar canopy, as well as football and soccer fields for the youth leagues. We address environmental and public health concerns by producing renewable energy for sale to the local utility company. And this creates a neighborhood-generated unrestricted revenue source, which is then reinvested in neighborhood-focused priorities such as healthcare, and this is a replicable business model that can be deployed in any DAC. And we continue to connect the dots with a decentralized healthcare system funded by solar energy revenues that meshes university preceptor training programs with virtual healthcare delivery, and allied health programs that create access for neighborhood residents to healthcare delivery as well as health industry employment. Again, the goal is to leverage cap-and-trade dollars and local government investment to create a neighborhood-focused infrastructure that leads to renewable energy production, neighborhood clean energy options, healthcare access, jobs and training, housing opportunities that rehabilitate and increase our housing stock. So there's a logic to all of this. Through direct neighborhood investment, we see jobs, environmental stewardship, building, and we build capacity for projects. We see direct effects to businesses and households and savings. Indirect effects include increased neighborhood spending, business and job retention, and we meet our target of neighborhood sustainability, stabilizing our businesses, avoiding displacement, and the loss of existing jobs. The disadvantaged community now becomes an active participant in climate change. So if we want to move forward with the inclusive economy, we need energy policy that encourages DACs or disadvantaged communities to participate in energy markets as producers, not as dependents on utility subsidies. We need transit policy that brings transit to housing rather than housing to transit. We need housing policies that financially support neighborhood-specific needs. We need distributive healthcare delivery that brings access to those who need it the most. And if we want to move towards this inclusive economy, we should recognize that regional plans are not really designed to solve this neighborhood distress. Investment-ready projects in disadvantaged communities, especially those that overlap with opportunity zones, require an intensive amount of planning. Neighborhood-specific planning is essential to achieving these goals, but there is virtually no funding for such type planning. The Transforming Climate Communities is a good start, but it requires much more funding to bring these concepts to scale. And local agencies need resources to create the decentralized planning mechanisms needed for neighborhood planning. We just simply cannot do this one neighborhood at a time. So what happens when we do this right? We have neighborhood-specific infrastructure becomes a priority before external profit. We see jobs in energy, health, transportation, and housing. We avoid displacement. We avoid gentrification, as people will stay in their neighborhoods. We see educational and vocational pathways, and most important, we begin to meet our Title VI obligations for equal distribution of public funds. This is how we can connect the dots between climate change policy and revitalizing our disadvantaged communities. Thank you.